let's say a professor comes in before someone and they use HDMI. So the next professor comes in and he's used to using the PC, but the previous professor had HDMI selected. So he comes in, he turns everything on, I can't get it to work. So one of the things that we really want to stress with these people is that if they have a problem, they need to call us. We don't want them fixing these carts on their own, because generally they just make the problem worse. So one of the things that you guys will come across is you'll have a professor who says they came into the room, they couldn't get it working, so they had one of their students or they started changing all the cables out and stuff like that. So you might walk into a room where this VGA cable that's supposed to be used for a laptop is plugged into the back of the monitor, and then they have like DVD selected as their source. Obviously none of that's going to work because everything's sort of wound together and they're not selecting the right things. One of the things that we want you guys to be aware of is if you guys come across something like that, I'm going to give you guys just kind of a quick rundown so we can try and have you guys fix it. But if it seems too daunting, that's something that we would want you guys to call us about. In this sort of situation, all the system cables are going to be coming out of its own little hole here. So like the VGA connection for the monitor, the mouse, keyboard, all the other stuff, the power cable are all going to be coming out of this. Your system cables should never be coming out of this cubby. This cubby is primarily used for source inputs. So if you guys come into a room, and generally, I don't know if you guys can see this, generally with our monitors, we're going to be using these blue VGA cables. So if you guys walk into a room and you find this cable, which is also gray, plugged into the back of the monitor, you guys should be aware that they're not going to be getting anything on the monitor because they've connected an input to the output on a monitor. So basically what you guys will want to do is unplug this, find the cable that's coming out of this little hole. If it's this blue cable, about 80% of the time you guys will be like, okay, that's the one that needs to go into the VGA port. So you want to unplug this, just put it back in here, and then you guys want to plug the right VGA cable into the monitor. Generally, it'll just pop right on, as it's supposed to. A lot of times, you'll have professors who want to use these USB inputs up here. Some of the rooms have them hooked up, some of the rooms don't. Some of them have had them hooked up and then they've gotten disconnected. I generally just tell professors to use the USB inputs on the PCs itself. It's basically just the best way to hedge, them not getting confused going room to room about which rooms work and which rooms don't. If they use the ones on the PC, we know that the ones on the PCs are always going to work. So if you get a professor and they're like, hey, I've got a presentation on here, I put it in the console, my USB's not coming up on the computer, I don't know what's going on. Come over here, just show them, the USBs on the PC and just be like, listen, some of these work, some of them don't. We always just suggest to people that they just use the USB inputs on the PC, and that'll generally just take care of the problem for you guys. Let's go through some kind of troubleshooting steps. So if you guys look at the system here, you guys will usually see this as well. This is your primary circuit breaker on the cart. Basically, the power coming in from the wall feeds directly into this, and then this feeds to all the equipment in the cart. We have been having more issues with rooms not having power lately, which is something kind of new. Basically, if somebody comes in here and they're like, nothing has power, I can't get power to anything, check all the equipment on here. If the cart really doesn't have power, the lights on this media link are going to be dead because this gets power independently from the rest of the system. So this is plugged directly into the power structure within the cart. So if there is no power, generally that's going to be your best bet. There won't be any lights up here on this console and on the switcher as well. The switcher has its own independent power as well. So if you guys look here, you can see a bunch of green lights here. You can see the source buttons over there. If those are all not lit, then generally it's going to be a power issue. One of the things about power is if you guys come into a room and it does look like there's no power, just check this little button. I've had a couple of people who, when they want to shut down the cart, they literally shut down the entire car. And this little button has a little like guard over it. It's because they shouldn't be switching this off. You guys can probably see that it's illuminated right now. That means that it's turned on. Just check this. If somebody says that the power is not working, the first thing you want to do is check these. If those are all not lit, check here. If that's not lit, that means that the circuit breaker's off and that's why there's no power. So just go ahead and flip it the opposite. It should pop up. Everything should boot up. It'll take a few minutes for the media link and the switcher to boot up. You'll see it, you know, it'll go through, have a whole bunch of lights. It'll look like a Christmas tree, and then it should look, after about a minute or two, it should look like this. If you switch that on and nothing happens, that means power to the cart is dead. So the first thing you want to check there is to see if the cart's plugged in. If it's plugged in and there's still no power, that means that there's an issue with the power in the room. You guys would need to send it to us because we'd have to have facilities come out and check the power in the room.